Well, since I'm on a bit of a trend with this happiness concept, I've decided to do one more quick conversation on the happiness traps that my society has laid out for its citizens. Now, when I say my society, I'm generalizing. I'm merely referring to the Western civilization. They've been extremely proficient at setting up these kinds of traps. It's almost like a landmine that they set up in front of their populace. And there are so many people that have accidentally stepped on these traps, and the damage was done before they even noticed it. And a lot of people still haven't noticed that they've fallen for a trap. And being aware of them is going to be extremely helpful, because navigating through this minefield is not going to be very easy, especially when you're seeing on all sides that these are the types of things that are going to lead you to happiness. But ironically, these are the very things that are going to actually prevent you from acquiring happiness. So again, it's good to be mindful that these are out there. Now, the first happiness trap is going to be trying to buy happiness. In the last couple lectures that I had, I've talked about trying to pursue happiness by looking for something external to yourself. You know, acquiring material luxuries, status symbols, and purchasing things like houses and cars and all these other various material things. The thing is that this trap says that once you acquire these kinds of things, you'll be happy. That all you need to do is acquire more money, and with more money you acquire more things, and with more things you can be a more influential person in society, and you're going to be happy as a result of that. But to be perfectly honest, all of these various things, they don't fill the void of your being. They're like a surrogate mother that you clasp onto because you don't know what you want in life. You thought you wanted that, but that's not exactly what's going to lead to any lasting happiness. Trying to relinquish your desire for things by trying to purchase stuff is like trying to put oily rags on a fire, or put paper on a fire, or hay, or gasoline, or rocket fuel, or any other combustible item on a fire. It just makes it worse. So trying to buy stuff, trying to purchase your happiness is an impossible task. You'll never be able to do it, and the moment that you think happiness will be coming your way by pursuing this route is the moment you're going to find yourself on an endless cycle of frustration. There'll be no end to it. The fire of your desire is only going to rage out of control. And what's kind of funny too is that a lot of people probably aren't even familiar with this concept, but they say that when you end up satisfying a desire, say for example, like I have a desire to veg out and watch a particular show, they end up saying that once you end up satisfying this desire, it ends up going away. Like go and eat some food or something like that, desire for eating goes away. You're no longer hungry. But the problem is that the vast majority of desires aren't like that. They actually get worse by you satisfying those desires. You might have some enjoyment by going and watching a show, and by the time you finish it, you're like, great, done, I don't need to watch that anymore. But does that really make you not want to watch it anymore? Not if it's a good show. And if it's a good show, you're almost get obsessed about following it through to its conclusion. You just want to keep watching more and more and more. And the more you watch, the more you want to watch, and it just keeps on perpetuating itself in an endless cycle. And it's always fleeting. It's always in the future, never at the now. So trying to purchase happiness is the first trap. The second trap is trying to find happiness through pleasure. Now, I want to make a distinction between pleasure and gratification. Pleasure is just a very fleeting type of experience. And it's true that, during the time that you experience pleasure, that it is bringing a certain amount of order to your consciousness. But I want to suggest that this order is relatively fleeting. You might find that moment to be enjoyable, but unfortunately, once the stimulus is gone, you're going to revert back to a state where you're numb and you're longing for more of it. So you feel anxious or worryful or just frustrated that you don't have this type of stimulus anymore. So in a certain sense, it's just not lasting. It brings more disorder than it does order in the grand scheme of it all. It's actually kind of cool. I've heard about a particular type of animal called a sea squirt. And the earlier stages of a sea squirt's life is it's just floating around in the ocean and swims around here and there, and eventually what it does is it attaches itself to some object and it remains stationary. And it dissolves its own brain. So it's just this little clinging creature that just slowly dissolves its own brain, its own mind, just veggies away. And that's what I think about people when they indulge too much in their pleasures. They're just dissolving away in the long run of it all. Versus gratification. Now, gratification, there's a little more involved because you actually have to put some effort into it. And it's not always going to be very easy. You have to really pay attention and be involved and focus on the activity at hand. And a couple different examples. Just one to start out with is going to be learning a musical instrument. Yeah, it's extremely difficult at first. It takes a lot of discipline and practice. And you got to really put your mind to it. And if you stick to it long enough, eventually it's going to be extremely enjoyable to sit there and play the music. But again, you earned it. It's something that you worked towards. And that's a very wonderful state of pleasure, but I would call that a higher state. But I didn't want to sort of label it as such, just so I can make that prior distinction between the passive state, which is pleasure, and the active state, which is going to be this gratification. But like anything that involves skill and technique and thinking things through is going to be within this category. So whether it's playing chess, playing music, painting, drawing, flower arranging, whatever, there's so many activities that there's a certain amount of discipline that you have to cultivate, and you get enjoyment through that, and that's more enjoyable than searching for pleasure. So again, the second trap to your own happiness is thinking that you can acquire it by searching for pleasures. Now, this next one here is going to be a little counterintuitive because within the span of a lot of psychology, they talk about the idea of let's talk about your past and let's go resolve all your past traumas and fix it all up and then we'll be good to go. But the implication is that when most people end up looking at their past and they do so in such a way where they look down upon their past, is that they usually feel like a victim, entitled to something, they feel like somebody should come and rescue them, or they should blame somebody. And Dan Baker actually used the acronym VERB. Victimization, entitlement, rescue, blame, to describe people that try to resolve their past. This is typically how they do it. So first of all, if some incident were to happen in the past where somebody felt wronged about something or other, and they think that this wrong has eventually led to their current situation, they feel like a victim. They feel like there were circumstances outside of the parameters of their control, and as a result of that, they feel that they're in an unjust situation. So they're resentful of their circumstances. They feel like it wasn't their fault that this is where things are at. And that leads to the next one, entitlement. They feel as though that the current circumstances are just not what they should be. They're entitled to more. They expect more. They don't want to put in the effort. They don't want to give that extra couple miles worth of work there, so to speak, but they feel entitled to so much more in that sense. And a lot of them want somebody to come and rescue them, to save them from their disparity or their circumstances. They don't want to put in the effort themselves or take responsibility for the circumstances. They want somebody to come along and lift them right out of their turmoil. But again, that's not very effective if you ever want to secure your own happiness. And lastly, blame. Blaming anything and everyone that they possibly can. Not actually doing some self-seeking and seeing, hey, perhaps maybe your own actions and choices and decisions and so forth have actually led you to your current circumstances. So again, trying to resolve the past is just another trap. It's not effective for gaining a lasting state of happiness. Something similar to that is going to be trying to overcome your weaknesses as the next happiness trap. This really has to do with ignoring your strengths. And it's amazing, first of all, just to think about this overcoming weaknesses. And our school system has embodied this happiness trap so beautifully that it's just, you gotta tip your hat a little bit for how much of an effective conditioner they are, or setting up traps right in front of the kind of the kids here, because again, they focus so intently on your weaknesses. You're not good at math? Well, guess what they're going to make you do? Math all day, basically. They're not going to emphasize your strengths, like, if you're great at art or social studies or so forth. They don't encourage you to go to the next levels within there. No, they're going to go back and they're going to focus on all your faults. All the little problems and implications within your education, they're going to pinpoint those, and those are the things that they're going to go at. Not moving towards your strengths, your passions, your callings in life. They don't care about those types of things. They want to go and focus on just the weak points, the little things that you're not quite up to par on, and get you to a point where you're in the realm of mediocrity within that, instead of excelling to the highest calibers of what you can within other areas. So again, trying to overcome your weaknesses doesn't lead you to happiness. It leads you away from happiness. And the last one I want to talk about is trying to force happiness. It's kind of funny, actually, because a lot of people within their mind frame can't even enjoy their happiness even when it arises. They can't even enjoy it because their mind is so preoccupied on the future. They're always looking ahead. What's in the distance? I'm enjoying circumstances now, but what's it going to be like tomorrow? What's it going to be like in a week from now? What's it going to be like 10 years from now? And if their happiness is insecure down the line, they can't even enjoy their moment because they're so fixated on the future. So without seeing this moment now, accepting this moment now, dancing to the flow of life like you should, like every single moment should be lived in that sort of fashion. But again, you can't force happiness. You have to allow it to sort of happen. And again, it's following your strengths. It's doing the things that I mentioned in some of my prior lyrics, like perspective and altruism and love and all these various other values. But the thing is, don't get caught up in these traps, though. These are just going to deter you from long-term happiness. And again, trying to buy happiness, trying to find happiness through pleasure, trying to resolve the past, trying to overcome your weaknesses, and trying to force happiness.